Baselode Energy with another educational video for you. Unfortunately, these are not assays. We're still pending assay results, so patience is still required on that front, but I've had a lot of fun, and I've just had a lot of fun putting this presentation together. I think it's very informative. So if you do like the Athabasca Basin, you want to learn more about it, I think you'll really get a lot out of this. As per usual, we like the shallow uranium mineralization story at Baselode Energy, so the presentations are really focused on that. I will be making forward-looking statements, but also looking backward-looking statements too, just trying to interpret some of the things that have happened in the past and maybe some rationale of why some deposits were mined. Sticking with this slide as per usual, but what I want to focus is on this time is on Cigar Lake and MacArthur River. It's the grades from those deposits, that 20% material that I think brings every company into the Athabasca Basin area. Those are the most valuable rocks mined in the entire world. Everybody who comes into this area wants to find a Cigar Lake, wants to find a MacArthur River, as do we. Baseload, yes, we would love to find these things, but in a near surface environment. And there's no doubt why. Like, Cigar Lake back in 2022 was the largest producing uranium mine. It produced 14% of the world's uranium. Isn't that mind-blowing? One mine just dominated uranium industry. And it's that value that is really inherent. So to put value of a grade of rock into perspective, it's always good to put terms into gold perspective because everyone speaks the language of gold. So if we use current price of gold as of yesterday and spot price from about a month ago, we can get an average or a gold equivalency for 20% uranium, and that's about 12 and a half ounces per ton of gold, not grams per ton, but 12 and a half ounces. So there's value in these rocks. Again, which is why everybody's looking for this type of rock. Everybody wants to find Cigar. Everybody wants to find MacArthur River because you've got the most valuable mined rock in the world. It's absolutely insanity. It's beautiful stuff. But they don't come without a cost, and that cost is water. So the blue line that's coming across there just emphasizes this a depth. Really, it's almost tried, tested, proven, and true in the Athabasca that if you've got more than 100 meters of sandstone cover, you've just got a lot of water to deal with, and it prohibits um, just the old school ways of mining or the common mining methodologies being open pits or adits or even just straight up underground shaft accessible mines. You have to do a lot of engineering when you're in these water saturated environments like a lot of the deposits are on the right hand side, but not when you're on the left side. And when we're considering grades and you want to find these really high grades that are open pitable, we look no further than Sioux Sea. Sioux Sea is has yeah, Susie holds the record for the most uranium mined within a single day. And because of the grades they were seeing in one of these nuggets, 40%, 80% grades, they mined 1 million pounds within a 24-hour period. Just think about that. That's a million pounds. What's the world the world demand right now is 200 million pounds, 280 million pounds, so not even a million pounds a day. And these guys are ripping out a million pound they ripped out a million pounds in a day. So you can get these really high grade nuggets that are close to surface and open pit amenable. That's part of the it's part of the whole thesis in the baseload story. I'm going to present a lot of data, and it's going to be in this chart formation. Actually, we're going to have four charts like this. The dates are on the bottom axis, and then each of these type of columns, rows, there'd be rows, yes. Each of these type of rows, the thin parts of those are exploration, and the thicker parts are all where things have been mined. So if it's yellow, it's been mined as an open pit. If it's orange, it's been mined through portal access, and if it's red, it's been mined through an Athabasca shaft. If it's gray, then there's never been any mining on those deposits. And then I'll present the grades of each. So you've got and the sizes. So grades are in black on the left hand side, and the size of the deposits are going to be green on the right hand side in the mining section. Then if there's no mining, then grade and size are right beside each other at the end. I'm going to throw in a first production line for the slides coming up. Very important when you start to consider some of these aerial plays. It's again, that's where a lot of the cool things really start to appear. And then there's going to be some arrows. So if we want to see no arrows in in these type of well, in the slides we're focused on no arrows because that means that there's your mineralization was shallower than 100 meters, so you don't have that water saturated environment. If you do have an arrow, mineralization is deeper than 100 meters, a black arrow. But if you have a blue arrow, the mineralization is deeper than 100 meters from surface, but you're also within a water saturation zone. So I consider there to be five major uranium jurisdictions in the Athabasca Basin throughout its history of production wise. Beaver Lodge, which I'm not really going to touch on beyond this simple note right here. Mined between 1953 and 1982, they're basically producing 2 million pounds a year uranium out of that camp. So 65 million pounds in total. But a lot of it was just low, low grade, small tonnage deposits. So I don't want to use that narrative to help build the Athabasca 2.0 and shallow mineralization case because it really emphasizes it and just makes that strategy that much more lucrative. So we'll start over there in Rabbit Lake, Eagle Point area, where for 40 years of production, 42 years of production, they mined 203 million pounds. That's averaging about 5 million pounds a year. So quite productive. If you look at where Rabbit Lake was originally discovered, it's 2 kilometers off this screen here. But I want to emphasize how close all of these things are. This whole pearl on a string idea. So we have Rabbit Lake off screen, 35 million pound open pit. It was 625 meters long, and we'll get to the length as well, why they're so important. But then that was followed up another discovery in 1971. So a year later, 16.9 million pound Colin Bay, 500-meter long open pit. Another open pit, 11 and a half kilometers long, so quite large, 40 million pounds though, no doubt, Collinsby. Another open pit. I want to point out those last three open pits, they all required ring dikes, so they had to block off the water entering so they could actually mine these things as open pits. So even here, that's still a water challenge to deal with, and they were able to deal with it. So near surface mineralization, you can deal with these things as open pits. And of course, Eagle Point, 171 million pound deposit. It's huge. And portal access, and the portal's very small. So all of these things are within a 12-kilometer strike length. They're all very close to each other. But looking at the production side of things, the exploration. So initial discovery 1968, Rabbit Lake, and that eventually turned into an open pit. But that it's that production line that I want to point out, that blue line that comes across. Basically, Rabbit Lake and Collins Bay were discovered before they started mining Rabbit Lake. We can throw in Horseshoe and Raven, but it's kind of outside the narrative based on what's been produced here. So there was a production decision made on 52 million pounds. The other 151 million pounds hadn't been discovered. They built the mill. They started mining off 50 million pound resource. And a lot of the 75% of the resource of the total resource has come after that decision. So I am trying to emphasize, I guess, the idea that we're not looking for these 100 million pound deposits. We're not looking for these 50 million pound deposits necessarily. These things can be much smaller than what they appear to be when a decision to be mined is made. Let's hop on over to Cluff Lake because Cluff Lake really emphasizes this fact as well. So we'll include Shea Creek in this. But here's a jurisdiction that was mining 3 million pounds over a 23 mine life. So not bad. 10 different deposits. D, which is off screen. Again, it's an open pit. Quite a decent tonnage there. 12 million pounds, 225-meter long. It's the smallest open pit within the Athabasca Basin. OP was portal access. Claude, open pit up to the north there. Dominique Peter, they used the same portal access as OP, and then Dominic Janine both had open pit and portal access. But each of these deposits are all within a kilometer of each other. They're all very close in that 65 million pound jurisdiction within here. But again, when you look at the decision that was made, the first three deposits, D, OP, Claude, those were all discovered. And they started production in 1979. That's before Dominic Peter, Dominic Janine were all discovered. So the production decision was made based on 18 million pounds of uranium, and they built the mill off that too. Everything was discovered after that. It's very interesting to see that perspective from From all of my years of exploration and trying to and being part of discoveries and seeing what goes into production, what doesn't, kind of changes my whole perspective and narrative on things, which is why I think the Athabasca 2.0 really works. If you look at the size of these deposits, some of these deposits that were mined, 30,000 pounds, 500,000 pounds, 400,000 pounds, they weren't these big ripping deposits. These are all individual little mine scenarios. They aren't where they're like Dominique Janine, where you've got all of this underground ramp, ramp portal access underground mining. You've got three different zones there that are all isolated from each other and mined separately. So it's interesting to see that yes, this perspective of let's mine these things out was really made. But I also want to point out this was Orano's predecessors. So basically, the French government, who have a different mentality than as let's say the Cameco style of thinking, from that jurisdiction, that Rabbit Lake jurisdiction that we just looked at. This is the French government who might have had a different mandate and not so concerned about economics as they were more concerned about security of supply. And I bring that, I put that idea out there just because of the current situations that Iran is facing. Like, it's a known fact about what's going on in Niger and Mongolia. So if you've got a mandate from a country that is is talking about increasing their nuclear fleet quite considerably, and you've got security of supply, you start to see a company that operates under things that are close to surface, but they don't have to be these massive style of deposits. And then Shea Creek at the bottom there. Kind of want to point out that Shea Creek was discovered before the mill and everything was converted back to nature, which it was successfully. And Shea Creek was has a resource of 95 million pounds right now, which is one and a half times what was mined out of Cluff Lake. So they knew about Shea Creek and still decided to pull the plug on the whole operation up there. Shea Creek's 15 kilometers south. That's an easy trucking distance. So why would you pull the plug when you've got more resource potential? Just because it's deep. You've got water issues, water saturated, and it's deep. So deep just doesn't always cut it. We're gonna hop over to Key Lake, MacArthur River. 550 million pounds mined within the last 40 years as well. 13 million pounds per year. This is the unicorn jurisdiction. Really, it's three mines. It's absolutely bonkers. Gartner and Dealman discovered back in the 70s, both of the open pits. But look at the size of those things: 87 million pounds, 123, both over 2%. Absolutely wild and crazy. Then there were a couple more discoveries made in this area before MacArthur River, but MacArthur River was discovered before the Key Lake mill would have ever been thought about decommissioned, and obviously a good thing they did because and they fast tracked it into production to right to coincide with the tail end of production out of Dealman. So this whole Key Lake MacArthur River area is just probably the best of the best in the entire world. It's an area where again, this is what people are looking for. This is what we're all looking for. We're looking for these monster deposits that can just go into production with long mine lengths, um, long lifetimes, and large production out of them. Key Lake was pumping out 10 million pounds per year. MacArthur River is pumping out more than that. These things generate revenue. That's the dream and the hope that everybody's looking to find with these. But most of the deposits in this area, they're all deep. They're all within these water saturated environments or just simply deep. And of the ones that are shallow, they're really small in this area. So again, you take that thinking of in this area, it's more Cameco dominant. So not so much the French government, the Irano side of thinking here. And so you can leave smaller things in the ground. There's no incentive to really go after those small 200,000, 900,000 type of deposits or really, really low grade deposits. We go back up to, well, let's call it Arano land again. McLean Lake and Cigar Lake. Again, another nice jurisdiction. This is the youngest of the areas. It's been producing about 7 million pounds a year, and 183 million pounds produced out of there so far. But the unlike most of the other areas we've seen where the first discoveries have gone into production, this is slightly different. This is the first discoveries have not gone into production. Look at that. Cigar was the fourth discovery in this area, and it was well, it's been the last to go into production. But what went into production first? It's all the open pits, all the shallow ones. Jeb and the Sioux deposits, those were the first to go into production. They built the mill for Cigar Lake. I mentioned Orano land. Well, that's to kind of point out the size of some of these deposits that were mined. 1.8 million pounds, 1.7 went down for 400,000 pounds, even though it was 8.9% grade. Still went down to 400,000 pounds. But there's that Sioux C, 36 million pounds, absolutely wonderful deposit where you can mine 1 million pounds in one day. So grade allows you to do wonderful things, but it's not always the be all and end all of mining in this environment. There's more than grade involved. There's more than the size. There's political agendas. There's engineering issues we have to consider. But I think that everything that I've just really demonstrated, um, I think ACKIO meets all of that. Near surface mineralization. We're 25 meters beneath the surface. Competent rocks with no water issues. You could basically scrape off the till and you can start mining. There haven't been discoveries this shallow in almost 40 years. And that's, I think, a thing that has been lost on just a lot of the exploration throughout the years. Been focused on exploring within the Athabasca, but I think there's a lot of opportunity outside the Athabasca. Also want to point out the volume of mineralization at ACKIO, 375 meters long. Now, there was a reason that I was pointing out all of the open pit lengths. Actually, some of them I probably missed, but I have them all recorded here. Is that the mineralization at ACKIO, 375 meters long, is smaller than these open pits. But of course, if you have an open pit, you have to make it larger than the resource. So we can assume that it would be a 450, 500 meter long open pit. So we fit within those open pit criteria that the Athabasca has already seen. And then you start looking at some of the sizes of these. Open pit sizes have ranged from 400,000 pounds to 123 million. There's no rhyme or reason to, oh, you have to have this amount of pounds, you have to have this size. I think what ACKIO has going for it without knowing a grade or without knowing a size, a lot of its criteria, just a lot of its characters really fit this open pit style of deposit that is possible. It's been done previously in the Athabasca. But the other thing to point out is we looked at areas, mined areas. They weren't single deposits. The mills were built for a couple deposits, but then more deposits were found later and had access to those mills. So we're kind of looking at the same thing here. We know there are mills nearby us. If we can prove up more mineralization than just ACKIO, oh, that's great. Then we're starting to build up that jurisdiction, and that's where our strategy or our target areas for next year at Tab and TT really come into focus, as they're very close to ACKIO. And if ACKIO can be a hub, then we can build out those spokes and and put and bring this whole jurisdiction to light as maybe the sixth mining jurisdiction in the Athabasca, might be seventh. And it just with that jurisdictional idea and being on trend with over 2 billion pounds of uranium having been discovered, yes, over 2 billion pounds. I think we've got the right ingredients. I think Baselode has the right strategy. We're looking for the right style of mineralization. We do have the right mineralization already. And I just think that all of our projects have the right geology, have the opportunity to host new uranium discoveries that would be amenable to shallow open pit mining. And so because of that, I think we are the largest asymmetric opportunity in uranium. We're trading at almost cash levels. which is kind of crazy. But we do have we've got significant cash in the bank. We're ready for exploration next year, and things are looking very exciting at ACKIO. We think that is something that can be mined quite readily. History has shown that deposit like ACKIO can be mined. So we're very bullish on what we have going for us and what we have planned for in the future. We think that this is the best time for an investor to get into baseload as we're trading at all-time lows. But if we do make a new discovery that's value added, and we should be creating value for shareholders with that. So 10 million in the bank for next year. Let's discover some future mines. Baseload's part of the Orr group of companies. You can reach us. You can follow us on social medias, but also want to point out just some of the appendices for the information that was presented. That yeah, it's all there. It's all legit. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. I from my summary, Athabasca Basin, yeah, it's about high grade. That's what people want to find. But to really consider something that can go into production, it's all about shallow mineralization. Shallow mineralization rules the day. All right, thanks for watching. Baseload Energy. Tell your friends.